Ravi sir, Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir. This is the Gujarat chapter IPA upcoming webinars. Series. This is the day we are. In front of all our colleagues that in terms of diabetic foot treatment and diabetic foot treatment protocol. So I heartily welcome Dr. APA Suri sir. He's from Delhi, and we know. Everyone knows Dr. Suri sir, and he's a legend of podiatry and in terms of diabetic foot care. Uh, I welcome Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir as well. He's also senior diabetologist in Vadodara, and he's also doing good work in diabetic foot as well. I welcome Dr. Kushan Nanavati sir. He is also a vascular and endovascular surgeon, and he's also working in diabetic foot since a long time. So I heartily congratulate all the participants today, and I hand over to Dr. A.P. Suri. He will give us something about the idea about the IPA, the main aim of the IPA, and what is the purpose to form the IPA and IPA Gujarat chapter. Over to you, sir. Suri sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chotala, and congratulate you for doing this webinar and organizing this webinar. I welcome one of the very senior faculty members and our moderators for today. We are three co-moderators, Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir and Dr. Ravi Kamipli from USA. Dr. Trivedi sir is one of the father figures of diabetes in the whole of Gujarat and in fact whole of India. And so many young doctors have learned a lot of diabetes under him. And I'm I think 2016, sir came to Delhi and attended our workshop. And I was honored that I was on the dais doing presentations and teaching new modalities of treatment for diabetic foot care in front of such a senior faculty who was with me. So really, sir, it feels great to be with you. And since then, we keep on talking and a lot of time and on lot of factors and lot of modalities we have talked. And in fact, one of my main aim of talk with Dr. Trivedi sir, and I forced him that we should start a Gujarat chapter of Indian Podiatry Association. And then in 2019, Dr. Chotala and his team, Dr. Dhara and other people joined together, and Dr. Ashutosh is there, and other people from Gujarat chapter, and a very strong team of Gujarat chapter of IPA is there. So this webinar is started by them, and we have initially done about 2 or 3 webinars already. We have done. This is the 4th webinar in this day. Under Indian Podiatry Association, we are proud to say that this is our 19th webinar, which we have done in a span of 2.5 months. At present, we are running 11 chapters of Indian Podiatry Association. Starting with, we have a chapter in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Gujarat chapter, Rajasthan chapter, Haryana chapter is running under Dr. Sandeep Suri. Bihar chapter is running under Dr. Santosh Kumar. Chhattisgarh chapter we have recently launched, and we have did a web launch with the governor of Chhattisgarh, and that has been done by Dr. Sunil Kalda, a very senior plastic surgeon, and Dr. Raka. And then we are already running Maharashtra, Punjab, and coming up with a Madhya Pradesh chapter. Just to tell you a brief history of Indian Podiatry Association, we started from 2009 when our core group consisting of Dr. Ravi Kamipli, who's here, one of the moderators, and then Dr. Rajneesh Saxena from Mumbai, Dr. Sanjay Kale from Nagpur, Dr. Sanjay Sharma from Bangalore, and a lot of other people, Dr. Naresh Dua, and we have a core committee. We came forward to launch this Indian Podiatry Association, main being that it's not that podiatrists are not there in the country. We have a physicians and as a surgeon, as an orthopedic surgeon, general surgeons. I think everybody is working in diabetic foot care. And diabetic foot is a disease which every nook and corner of the country we have patients with this. So we wanted to bring people working in together one platform and then start something any student after class 12 or after MBBS, they have to do podiatry. They have to USA, UK, or Australia to do that, and we know my children can go over there. So with this aim, we launched Indian Podiatry Association, and since last 10 years, we are doing 4 workshops every year for the senior doctor, live workshops in Delhi, and then we have online course of fellowship in diabetic foot management. This is the first time in the whole country we have launched this program in diabetic foot care. Any doctor, MBBS and level higher, even plastic surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, general surgeons, or diabetologist, a physician, he can attend that fellowship, he can do the fellowship. And at present, 138 doctors are registered into this. We have done first convocation in 2019, and because of the COVID, we were planning to do in April, but we couldn't do it. So something in September, end of October, we'll plan the second convocation. So with this aim, our main goal is IPA stands for I Prevent Amputation. And we are also happy that Shalay Chotala is one who gave this slogan of I Prevent Amputation along with Dr. Santosh Muthi from Telangana, Dr. Manish Kumar from Maharashtra, and all other our core team members. And we are proud that we are doing such great work in diabetic foot care, like lot of new dressings, lot of new technologies, lot of new offloading techniques. We are running a course for paramedics now, for the dressers, and for the even for the we have a group of physiotherapists now who are interested in doing podiatry. Like we are doing Indian IPPA, and we have recently done 4 workshops in that fellowship in that program also. So a lot of physiotherapists are also dealing into podiatry. So with this aim of I Prevent Amputation, we congratulate the whole Gujarat team for coming forward and doing this 4th webinar. And best of luck to Dr. Chotala, to you and your team. We have 3 very good speakers today. Dr. Ashutosh Shah, which is he's a very senior plastic surgeon in Surat, and I personally met him many times and have seen his cases doing excellent. And then we have Dr. Nanavati. Additionally, if you see any hospital or any center which is doing a comprehensive combined wound management team, which consists of a podiatrist, a diabetologist, a plastic surgeon, and a vascular surgeon. So these 4 are the best team who work together. In those hospitals or in those centers, we have literally negligible amputation is there. There's no amputation in those hospitals in diabetic foot care, where you are working in tandem or working in a team with a vascular. So role of a vascular surgeon we all know in their patients have atherosclerosis. So until unless we maintain the perfusion of the wound or the foot or the lower legs, we can't save these patients from major amputation. So podiatrist, diabetologist, a plastic, and a vascular surgeon. So these 4 are teamwork, and with this aim, this webinar has been done. So I hope all the audience will have a good take-home message by this webinar, and I congratulate everyone into this. And then third speaker is no other than Dr. Chotala. He's a podiatrist there, and we have very good take-home messages from this webinar. Welcome. And we start with Dr. Ashutosh. Dr. Trivedi sir will introduce Dr. Ashutosh.
Chotala. Dr. Chotala. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Shall I, please, you introduce?
Yeah. Dr. Chotala, you can introduce Dr. Ashutosh Shah.
Yes, sir. Dr. Ashutosh sir actually is not, I mean, he wants to come to later, I mean, after 1 hour. He's in,
okay, so we
now.
can start with
Dr. Shailesh sir.
Dr. Nanavati, can we start with you?
No.
We can start with Dr. Nanavati.
Whatever you feel like, sir. Shailesh sir would like to speak first, so that's whatever sir likes.
Shailesh Trivedi sir will be okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Doctor,
please.
Yeah.
So, Doctor, as we know, Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir is MD in General Medicine and diabetologist working in Vadodara. He is also a chairman of RSSDI, which is the body of Diabetes Society of India, I mean Research Society for Study of Diabetes in India. And He looked after for Gujarat, and he's also a chairman. Dr. Shailesh Trivedi's Advanced Diabetes Center and Research Institute located in Vadodara. He was ex-president of Association of Physicians of Gujarat for the year of 2010, and he's also ex-president of Association of Physicians of Vadodara from 2015 to 2018. He also organizing chairman of API DIAS Vadodara in 2015. He is also a winner of Jaisang Bapa rotating lectureship award in 2016. He's, very sound profile of sir, and he is very senior diabetologist. He's also presented more than 25 scientific papers and publications in various national and international journals. He's also a practicing physician since 1983, mainly in diabetes, thyroid, and metabolic disorders. He's also a member of AACE, ADA, RSSDI, ACP, and Endocrine Society. This all society, related to the diabetes. And he's also taken more than 150 scientific lectures in a regional and national and international conferences. So we are, very fortunate to have you, sir. You are the very senior in terms of everything related to diabetes. So without wasting time, I am thanking you again to come to you, join us today in Gujarat chapter of this diabetic conference. And I welcome you again, and please start with your lecture, sir. Over to you.
Shall I share my video?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Chotala, I must sincerely thank you for kind words and plethoric words of introduction. But I learned from Dr. Suri Sahib, who is the father of Indian Diabetic Foot Society, and all said and done, he is a wonderful, prolific speaker with profound knowledge. With when I met him in Delhi, I could imagine that he is not only a good surgeon, a bold surgeon with a perspective of only one aim: how to cure, how to manage his patients so well with minimum time, less morbidity, and try to prevent the amputation as much as possible. He's a wonderful surgeon, a gifted craftsman, and as he has very rightly coined, sir has very rightly coined, IPA, Indian Podiatric Association, is rather I prevent amputation. That is a better word, to recognize our association. Under his leadership, who I think now in the COVID-19 infection era, probably virtual platform is going to be the flavor of the season for at least a year or two, and that would be fair enough. It is convenient. It is convenient, and at the same time, people can have their liberty to choose the subjects. Now, diabetic foot. I'll start with the topic diabetic foot, unfortunate morbidity and its management. Why unfortunate? Because this 75% of the amputations, these amputations can be prevented. So the one which cannot be prevented, like diabetes has two major complications. One is macro and microvascular complications. After liraglutide, that is GLP-1RA and SGLT2 inhibitors, they have revolutionized. They have almost revolutionized the treatment part in the diabetes management. Not only that cardiac safe, but they have proven to be cardiac superior. So, they are helpful for prevention, for helping in the cardiac mortality, reduction in the stroke, reduction in the hospitalized heart failure, and reduction in the myocardial infarction as well. And in one of the latest trial of SGLT2 inhibitor, dapagliflozin, they have even shown that 37% of the patients, they can be prevented to have diabetes as well. So not only it helps in the diabetes complications, but it helps in the diabetes pathology also. Now, as we know all, the macrovascular complications, it's a very complex pathology. And here it is not in our hand. Sometimes even in pre-diabetic patients, they can also have myocardial infarction. They can have unfortunate retinopathy that is very well documented. Microvascular complications, as we know, it takes usually 10 years or so, but that is not so. But it can happen because of the uncontrolled diabetic status for a long time. But these complications, what we are going to talk today, and Dr. Chotala has very rightly uh, chosen the subjects. I am going to talk on, unfortunate morbidity and its management. I speak the topic in the diabetic foot ulcers, risk factors, classifications, prevention of DFU and management. Certain topics may overlap, so I may, skip or I may shorten my talk in such a way so that the next speaker has ample time, because I am basically a physician, so I will not enter into the territory of a surgeon. Diabetic foot ulcers, as you know all, every individual who is a diabetic, they have, almost 90 to 34% of the diabetic individuals, they do develop diabetic foot ulcers during their lifetime. And of them, 50 to 20% of the patients, those who are having diabetic foot ulcers, they need an amputations. And the person who has undergone lower extremity amputations, they have, unfortunately, the mortality is, they have a mortality of almost 80% at the end of the 5 years. Risk factors, why do they develop diabetic foot? First of all, is it only uncontrolled diabetic? Yes, uncontrolled diabetes is one of the major things. But whenever it's a complex process where there is a loss of protective sensations, there is associated vascular disease, that is peripheral artery disease is also involved, and a simple scratch or a simple abrasion which unlooked after or untreated, that can lead to a little infection, that can lead to little more abscess, infection spreading into the deeper tissues, and that can involve either involve a part of the foot, and it can lead to unfortunate complication, amputation. And this partly sometimes it may be because of the congenital foot deformities that we'll discuss little later. As I mentioned, these are small things which can happen to anybody. But when it happens to a diabetic patient, it must be looked after very, very well. If you see a small fungal infection, here is a developing small infection in the first slide. Here is a healing ulcer. Again, the slide is showing, infected wounds in the great toe and first toe. Classification, as you know, there are various classification, and the classification is based on how these patients are stratified into low, moderate, or high risk for the development of foot complications. Those who have low risk patients, they usually are seen annually, but those who have high risk patients, those who are high risk, they should be seen at a very frequent intervals. Is it preventable? Yes, as I mentioned, 75% of the diabetic foot ulcers are preventable. It is upon us, it is our mandatory duty to emphasize, to educate our patients to how they can help themselves. And it helps not only the patients, but it helps in reducing the clinical and financial burden of this patient. I remember a patient before few months only, he happened to go to Haridwar. He uncontrolled diabetes. He unfortunately had a little fall, developed an infection, immediately bed gangrene. It was so bad, hypotension, infection, multi-organ failure. He went to Max Hospital there in Delhi. Financial burden was there, tremendous. So he shifted back to Vadodara, and there we had no option but to amputate his entire left lower extremity. That story does not end there. It further leads to septicemia, multi-organ failure, and he had an acute and chronic renal failure, and he ultimately landed into NASH. Ultimately, uncovered NASH became prominent. Chronic renal failure, which was almost silent for a long time, became very obvious. He went into dialysis almost for 3 months. He spent around 22 lakhs in one of the multi-specialty hospitals. So a simple ulcer, which he could have treated at the time of when it happened in Haridwar, unfortunately, he did not, and that cost him his limb, and now his life is so bad he has to be on a wheelchair. Examination of feet. Whenever I do not examine the radial pulse. Whenever I see the patient, I examine the dorsalis pedis. This is my habit. So it is how do you can have your own method of examination. So you see, when you, as a diabetologist, you see the foot, you see the abnormality, whether it is normal or whether this patient is at risk. You see the skin texture, you see whether the hair are lost or not, and at the same time, is there any dorsalis pedis will help you, whether it is feeble, and there is any abnormality, physical abnormalities. And this is a monofilament study. That can be also be seen. If further evaluation is done, Doppler study can also be done. But clinician's role is in pre-ulcerative condition is very, very important. How do we screen? As I mentioned, every person with diabetes should be screened annually, and there is a systemic evaluation of the diabetic foot, includes neurological, vascular, dermatological, and musculoskeletal system. As well as shoe gear evaluation is a must. We must look at the shoes, what he is wearing, whatever the footwear he is wearing, we must see. Most of the time, I think if I'm not, whenever I examine the pulse, immediately I look at his footwear. And his footwear, if it is, sometimes, as you know, they are not, they are either small size, or they are not of the proper size, or they are at the different levels, and that could be one of the reasons for his chronic irritations. So that is what we must look at it, and evaluation should be done with various instrumentation, various technologies which is at hand with us. So prevention is most important. How do we prevent? Knowledge is the power. So if we educate the patients very well that whenever you take a bath, please clean your foot with a warm water, clean it with a soft cloth, dry it, immediately put your shoes, or don't put your socks immediately, wait for a while, and then put your footwears. And the footwears are very important. They should be accommodative. They should be little deep and large size, and if it is required, there should be insert, there can be soles can also be inserted, and this is a part of the routine foot care what we must take. Structured diabetic, a step further. We should be reminded, patient should be reminded that the food complications can be avoided if you do your sugar control very, very carefully, and it should be under you only. Check your foot daily. Avoid barefoot walking. We have in India, most of the, many people, we have no comments for any, homeopathy or, Ayurvedic or naturopathy, but people have a habit of walking barefoot in the lawns, and sometimes, small ulcer can develop because of some friction or small aberration. So avoid barefoot walking, which is a must. So we must educate the patient. That is very, very important. Education to the patient, that will help him a long way. For this, please explain to them that your sugar target should be less than 7, preferably 6.5 to 7. If still young, less than 6.5 is still 6.5% HbA1c is still better. This is what I was talking about the shoes. Give him a plethora of options. Give him the choice. If he's a young man, he would like to have a Shah Rukh Khan type of shoes. If he's a young man, he would like to have a canvas shoes. But then give him a choice. So important part is, we have to prevent the incident ulcerations, and incident ulcerations occur most of the time because of the footwears. So diabetic shoes are generally deeper and wider, and it helps in reducing the peak plantar pressure. Plantar pressure is most important. If it is unequal, usually either we one foot unequivocally, either on left side or right side. This is what the usual human tendency is. So ask him, educate him that your foot should be on equal weightage, should be on both the feet, and every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, if your profession is of standing in nature, please try to change the prominent part on which your weight is bearing of the foot. And again, education, we must tell our patients that once you get up from your bed, please have a footwear like a what we call it as chappal or a sleeper, a Hawaiian sleeper. Not Hawaiian sleeper is very tough, but a soft sleeper that should be fair enough, and they should start wearing from day number one. I mean, from the time they get up. There are custom molded shoes who can afford. That is still better. You know, there is a mold on which you have to put your foot, and immediately the mold will be taking the shape of a foot, and accordingly the foot can be the footwear can be made to the order according to the size of the patient. And this is the another picture is showing, you know, what is Charcot's joint. It's a Charcot's joint is a one of the most important thing is this can be prevented. Here, why osteoclastic activity begins, that nobody knows. There are some few genetic observations are observed, but here, because of which there is osteoclastic activity, bone resorption, dislocation of the joints, displacement of the bones, soft tissue element coming into the picture, swollen joint, and there can be associated infection also in the subsequent part. Routine foot care, as I mentioned, it should be associated with regularly scheduled interval appointments with other foot care specialists. Remember, diabetic foot care is not only one-man show. It is a multi-care specialty. So one should not be, that, only he will be able to take care. If you need to take an opinion from a plastic surgeon, do not get hesitated. Take the opinion of a podiatrist, take an opinion of a foot surgeon, take an opinion of a vascular surgeon. It is always better to have opinion from your colleagues who are expert. Treat the, we must look for the other obvious pathologies like calluses, fungal infections, or ingrown toenails, skin fissures. And these are all small things, but it can grow into a significant foot complications. And we must treat them from the beginning. So again, evaluate the foot and reinforce the foot education. Clinician's role in ulceration, ulcerating the bone healing. Here, promote bone healing is most important. Here, it's a least morbid means surgical incision and drainage followed by, good intravenous antibiotic is a must. But surgical incision by physician is usually surgical incision by a physician is not the bold. We require a bold, wide incision with remembering anatomy very well, because sometimes you must remember that dorsalis pedis is going from, in a straight way. If you put a transverse incisions across the foot, then it can lead to some unfortunate complications. So a good drainage, good IV antibiotics, and investigations including serial radiographs to look for whether the patient has developed osteomyelitis, and if required, imaging studies as well. Here the patient should be called at the regular interval, and debridement should be done at the regular interval, rather a shorter interval. Why? Because the moment there is a, if you don't do debridement, the infection is going to go deeper and deeper, and again the patient will go into irreversible stage. So here, the quality of foot debridement or offloading, what we call it, it should be of a high quality by an experienced surgeon who is an expert. Remember, there are surgeons also, but remember there is a plastic surgeon and there is a vascular surgeon. There is a difference between. So select your surgeon wisely. See that whatever you are offering to the patient is in the benefit of the patient, and there are various debridement methods. That is not my cup of tea, whether it is sharp, surgical, autolytic, or enzymatic, but there are various methods of this offloading. Monitoring process is very important. They should be monitored very regularly, and if cancer area does not reduce over a period of four weeks, then we must think that either we are going to a wrong path or we must change the path. So here, post-ulceration care of a clinician is most important. Here, again, importance is what? Reinforce the education. That look, fortunately, this time you are saved. Your diabetic foot is, fortunately, you are so lucky that amputation has not occurred. But then it can happen any other time also. Again, your sugar control is most important, foot care is more important, and your footwear is again the paramount importance. And this all can be done, and they should adhere. They should adhere. Patient should be adhere with this instructions, and this would help the patient in a long way, in a such a way that it can help ultimately in preventing amputation. Our whole goal of a physician is to control the sugar. But once the sugar is under control, still it happens. Please do not hesitate. Don't try to keep the patient with yourself. Refer the patient to the respective surgical branch. And after all, our interest is patient's well-being and patient's care. Thank you, Dr. Chotala. Thank you, Suri sir. Thank you, Ravi. And I hand over the mic to the next speaker, please.
Thank you so much, sir, and very nicely taken up message for the doctors dealing in diabetic foot care. And as you said, we all know one is the screening process is very important. Taking care of nails, taking care of onychomycosis, taking care of interdigital maceration of skin is very important. And also very important is the sugar control. We have already seen a lot of data is available that if sugar control or HbA1c is under international guidelines, so we all know that we can prevent a lot of patients from getting into peripheral neuropathy and peripheral vascular disease. So sugar control is a major thing, and all the slides which you have shown, sir, are very vast, very nicely depicted, and a very good topic. Now I invite Dr. Nanavati.
Dr. Ashutosh sir is with us, sir.
Dr. Ashutosh, welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Yes. So, Dr. Ashutosh can take the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Dr. Chotala, you can introduce.
Yes, sir. Yes, as we have a wonderful knowledge regarding the plastic surgery, and we have one of the with us, Dr. Ashutosh sir.
Can we mute all the audience? Please mute yourself, because this webinar is being conducted from USA. So me or Dr. Trivedi sir or Dr. Chotala can't mute. Please mute. There's a lot of disturbance in between. Other than the speaker, everyone mute yourself. Yes, Chotala.
Yes. As we continue with this webinar, Dr. Ashutosh sir, he is also a renowned plastic surgeon of Gujarat. He is practicing in Surat, and he has a wonderful knowledge about diabetic foot and the newer techniques like surgical offloading. He is master in it, and he is running his Elegance Center for Diabetic. And recently, he also worked with me like. Surat Podiatry Center we are going to open soon in Surat, and as we all know, he is also members of Indian Podiatry Association Gujarat chapter, and he is also a member of the Plastic Surgeon that association, many association. He has joined in his career, and without wasting time, I welcome Dr. Ashutosh sir to take a lecture, and please join, sir.
Hello everyone. I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. You can share your slides, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. And I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, it's nice to see Dr. Suri again and Dr. Ravi also. And we are very thankful to Dr. Ravi for conducting this workshop from USA. It is nice to see Dr. Shailesh Trivedi also, whose name we are hearing since MBBS days. As I am a student of Baroda Medical College, we also learned very much things from Dr. Shailesh Trivedi. So good evening, sir. Also. So my topic is about surgical offloading. I'm a plastic surgeon and working in diabetic food management since long. Till now, I was also doing, yeah, external offloading, debridement, and various type of skin grafts and flaps. Recently, what happened in diabetic foot was uh, some thinking process. A thinking process was, till what time can we wear special type of footwear? I am undergoing a stress fracture for last 20 days and I had to wear that special air cast. So it's very difficult to wear that special air cast for me a day-to-day life. So takes Dr. Salesh Chautala himself provided me. It is very difficult to have a very special footwear in Indian scenario where we need to remove our chappals in our kitchens or in our temples or when we go to others' home. So it is very difficult to move around with the various special diabetic footwears. Even if we wear that, or even if by various means we change or we heal the foot ulcers, once the diabetics biomechanics has been changed by various pathologies, the pressure bearing point will be there even after healing of the ulcer. And ulcers comes recurring, the patient comes to us repeatedly and saying that, sir, this ulcer has happened at the same site, or they lose the trust over the our treatment. It is not like that conservative management or external offloading or any other things are not working. They are very much needed, they are very much in treatment, they are very much in need for the patients. So what I am talking about is something advanced, what is now we have started doing. My presentation contains some images from Dr. Madhu from where Ganga Hospital, Coimbatore, where I have learned this diabetic food. Yes. And now I'll start my lecture. Sir, can you, are you seeing this, my slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, first I'll talk about diabetic foot ulcers. These are the grades of ulcers, what way they follow in Ganga Hospital. Like grade 1 is foot at risk. So maybe some callosity or corns have developed, but not any ulcer. Grade 2 is superficial ulcers.
মিউট করে গেছে তারপরে কথা শোনাচ্ছে
Hello.
ও এপিএস সরি
Audience, please mute your mic, please. Farhana is there. Lots of noise from you, I think. Please mute.
Dr. Rana, can you mute yourself? Dr. Rana,
yes sir
please mute your phone.
thank you
There's
sir
disturbance
thank
coming.
you yes sir thank you sir.
Okay. So grade 1 is with corn or callosity without any ulcer. Grade 2 is superficial ulcer which has started but there is no infection, as well as this ulcer hasn't communicated with inside tendon sheath or any other important structure. Grade 3 is crippled foot where some infection has happened, some tissue necrosis has happened, or infection is already settled down. And grade 4 is critical foot, which is critical foot is grade 3 we can repair it by various surgical debridements or plastic surgical techniques, but grade 4 is critical foot means we need to go for amputation, or otherwise that ulcer will lead to patient's death or amputation of the patient. So now what we all have to go for grade 1 and grade 2. These are the points where we can do something to prevent them to go to grade 3 or grade 4. Now, what presently we are seeing patients are only of grade 3 and grade 4. So we need to educate around our podiatric friends or other our physician friends or our surgeon friends, so that they can see while writing the medicine for diabetics, they can see or they can at least advise to have look on the patient's feet also. All diabetics feet speak something for themselves. So all physician friends should be requested and they should be taught how to check. They can keep one staff dedicated in their OPDs. They can even charge for diabetic foot examination. So what we can do here is grade 1, there is no ulcer, but this is ulcer prone. Here all conservative management like footwear and foot care are very much important. All external type of footwears, they should be given in grade 1. They are very much important to have various type of footwears where you can give total contact footwear also, or otherwise you can give offloading footwear also. But the limitation of footwear, I told that in Indian scenario we need to remove the footwear so many times, so we need to make the patient understand also. The main thing what I wanted to talk about is about grade 2, when there is a some surgical intervention can be done, and that is in form of offloading. Till now we were offloading the ulcers, ulcers were healing, but now with some understanding of diabetic foot, we have seen that ulcers in diabetes occurs at very special site. They don't occur anywhere in the food. So why these special sites? And then the research began and they find out that the biomechanics of such ulcers is fixed. And if some biomechanics is changed, then the ulcer will become at the same point. And so that they have devised the procedures in which that special biomechanics is dealt with. And when we deal with that pathological biomechanics, the ulcer usually, if it is in grade 2 or grade 3, it usually heals by itself without any major intervention. So this is called surgical offloading. Even I am repeating that external offloading or the splinting from outside or total contact cast or callus debridement, they are not important. They are very much important in our practice, in our healing of the foot ulcers. But if we are keen and if we are understanding the biomechanics, this surgical offloading is a miracle thing. So many patients I have advised till now, but they are afraid of getting surgery in diabetic foot. They think that with surgery, even the things become worse. So it is not the era which has started in India now, but slowly they'll understand. We need to make the patient understand that surgical offloading, once they undergo, they need not to wear a special footwears. So they give internal splinting and tendon transfer so that the surgical offloading from occurs from inside. So if you can see this ulcer, this is due to FHL contracture, flexor hallucis contracture. So if you release flexor hallucis, this part doesn't touch the ground and the ulcer will heal by itself. Similarly, this toe ulcer is due to the contracture and the hammer toe. Once this toe we release with the FTL transfer to extensor expansion or simple OPD procedure called flexor pterolysis. So with the needle, if you can break this flexor tendon, the finger will toe will become straight and the ulcer will heal by itself. Similarly, procedures are described for great toe IP ulcers, even the great toe, the ball of the toe ulcers. These all procedures will internally fix the tendons or the joints so that the abnormal pressure at this point will be stopped from inside, so that ulcer will heal without any flap or any intervention. So yeah, these are the small examples of forefoot ulcers. Now I'll show you that forefoot ulcers are usually due to the tendo Achilles lengthening. So what happens is the tendo Achilles lengthening, if we do, the heel also will bear some weight, and so that the forefoot will not bear the full weight of the body, so that the forefoot ulcer can heal. If the hind foot ulcer you are getting, then it is meaning that your tendo Achilles mechanism is weak, so that the whole weight of the body is going on the we need to strengthen the tendo Achilles. So thereby we can change the biomechanics. Even the Charcot foot, if they come early, we can do bony fixation and we can prevent that proctocondylarm. Inversion and eversion of the foot also can be corrected by tendon transfer of tibialis anterior as well as the peroneal tendons. So I'm showing the advantages of surgical offloading, that they will be changing the pathological biomechanics so that the ulcer will be prevented. Ulcers can be healed by anything, but the prevention of recurrence is also important, and that can be done with the surgical offloading. Still, so many patients are not getting ready for this surgical thing in diabetic foot. But yes, slowly we are improving, our friends are improving, and slowly the patients also will understand that this is the important thing. Once the internal offloading is there, so prolonged use of offloading footwear is not must. I repeatedly say prolonged use is not required. So once a while, patient can be without special footwear, and that can be very important for his lifestyle. Once ulcer is healed, they are also motivated to take care of the foot and healed ulcer, so there is no progressive infection. For this, a pedobarogram is a very useful tool. As Dr. Sailesh Chotala said, myself, Dr. Sailesh Bhai, and one of the prosthetists, Dr. Bipin, we three are gathering to get a Surat Podiatry Center in a recent future, and will be serving Surat and surrounding area with the special instruments and with the special procedures. Dr. Sailesh will take care of podiatry department. I will take care of surgical department and procedures, and Dr. Bipin will take care of prosthetics department. So these are the various patients. Now I am talking about grade 3 ulcers, where you can see there is a debridement, there is an ulcer which is infected in diabetic patient. Here the surgical debridement was done, the negative pressure wound therapy was applied, as well as the sugar control was also done by physician. Thereafter, various debridement was done and primary closure as well as skin grafting was done, and ulcer healed by itself. And now the patient is on special footwear. Similar, this type of patient, dorsum ulcer, treated with negative pressure wound therapy, flap was done, and that ulcer healed. Post cellulitic area, you can see this much cellulitis on first examination, and when you start debriding, it goes whole around the lower limb. So this is a very risky things. So we need to prevent them to go to grade 3 or grade 4. So grade 2 or grade 1, at the point where we need to intervene, all podiatrists, all doctors who are in diabetic foot care. So now that it's granulated, and now we have closed and skin grafting was done and areas are healed. So here I want to tell that in diabetic foot we do now free flaps also. So free flaps, previously we were thinking that they cannot be done in diabetic foots, but now we are doing it with very good success. Even with atherosclerotic vessels also, we transfer the various muscles or various tissues from other body part to foot to cover the major defects. So now reconstruction has improved a lot, and we are saving so many patients limb with reconstruction. but we are dealing with diabetic foot, and we plead that we should not get this type of patient what we are getting now. But as that happened in cancer, that now patient comes in early stages, then what had happened
Thank
in
you.
other things, now that will happen in diabetic foot also. Dr. Sailesh is very much active in Gujarat, and he is doing so many webinars and seminars for peripheral things also. And when we join in our future, we'll also start educational things, so that this awareness will go to society, that early if we intervene, the complication rate will be very less and the results will be improved. We'll be taking support of vascular surgeons also, physicians also in our center, and endocrinologists also. So if you have any query, you can ask me questions about this. Only 2-3 questions. I need to go for surgery. And thanks Dr. Suri and Dr. Sailesh Bhai to give me time in between. So if anything remains, just tell me, please.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Asutosh. Dr. Sandeep here from Baroda. I have one question. You are teacher, you are senior to me. Just wanted to ask you, any experience in metatarsal head osteo?
It was a very nice presentation, and yes, surgical offloading is an incoming thing now, but the only compliance of the patient is very important.
So many patients still not getting ready for the diabetic foot treatment.
That we should do these type of offloading.
Hello.
Yes, Sandeep.
Sir, regarding that, Asutosh bhai, you any experience of the metatarsal head osteotomies?
Yes. So it is.
So now I invite
Sandeep, you can call me up on my mobile number. You can get it from Dr. Sailesh. I think they are starting their workshop presently. So you can call me later. Yeah.
Sure, Asutosh bhai.
Thank you, Suri sir. Thank you.
We have a question answer section. Yeah, we have a question answer
session. In Patna, Gujarat. He is associated with WIMS Hospital and also attached with multiple corporate hospitals across the country. He has done his training from Vadodara Medical College and also from Sir Gangaram Medical College from New Delhi. He dedicated to diabetic care. People know that, as I said in my initial talk, that vascular surgeon is a very important part. Wherever we have podiatry and a vascular surgeon surgery together, along with diabetologist, along with orthopedic surgeon, along with podiatric surgeon and a plastic surgeon, the results of our comprehensive movement is very nice, and we are really able. Small toes, like 1 or 2 toes, have to be amputated, but major amputations we really prevent if we have a teamwork of vascular surgeon, podiatrist, pathologist, and a to Dr. Nag. Please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suri, and it's an honor to me to be a part of Indian Podiatry Association, and I'll try to do justice to the topic given to me. As rightly said by Dr. Suri, it's a teamwork to save the limb of a diabetic foot patient. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's visible, sir. Yeah.
So, as rightly said by Dr. Suri, it's a joint effort by the team of vascular surgeon, podiatrist, physician and surgeons and plastic surgeon to take care of the limb. Fortunately, only 15% of the patients with diabetes have ischemic component, but these patients are at very high risk of developing gangrene, and there's high chances of major amputation in such patients. Can you switch off your mic, please?
Dr. Suresh Agarwal, please mute your mic, please.
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਉਦਾਂ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ, ਇੱਥੇ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕਰ ਲਓ.
Please, Dr. Suresh, I request you.
As Dr. Trivedi sir said, almost 40% of the diabetic patients will develop some kind of food complication throughout their life, and out of that 15% patients will develop a major food ulcer which will require some kind of intervention. If we go to the statistics, the chances of developing arterial insufficiency is approximately 15% after 10 years of diabetes mellitus and 45% after 20 years of diabetes. And all over world, 40,000 to 80,000 amputations are done just for diabetic foot complications. And the one worrisome statistic is that if a patient with diabetes develop an amputation, there is 50% possibility of undergoing second leg amputation also in next 5 years. So in the pathophysiology part, we'll concentrate in this session about the arterial component. So the macroangiopathy and microangiopathy are one of the risk factors for diabetic foot complications. Usually patients presents to vascular surgeon at a late stage. You can see the gangrenous toes, the infection spreading up to the dorsum of the foot, and then suddenly the treating doctor realizes that now this patient has some kind of vascular problem. So what is the best thing to prevent this kind of stage? The most important part of the foot examination in diabetic patient is foot pulsations. As Dr. Trivedi rightly said, he checks dorsalis pedis artery in the radial artery. So that should be the practice every physician or a consultant seeing diabetic patient should develop. To check diabetes, to check dorsalis pedis artery and posterior tibial artery pulsations are the most important in examination part in the clinical examination. And if you have any kind of doubt in like absence of pulse or weak pulse, one should investigate the patient further with Doppler investigations, ankle brachial index or transcutaneous PO2 pulse volume recording. There are various type of non-invasive investigations available, out of which color Doppler is the most and the best, gold standard investigation for the screening part. We'll not talk about neuropathic ulcer, that has been covered already. So as I said, 15% of diabetic patients will develop ischemic ulcer either due to microangiopathy or macroangiopathy, or and these kind of patient requires urgent and aggressive intervention by a vascular surgeon. So early vascular surgeon, as Dr. Suri sir said, definitely prevents amputation of the limb. There are certain principles of the treatment. We'll describe it later. Again, Dr. Ashutosh sir said septic foot infection, they rapidly progress. It's like a tip of iceberg phenomenon. Small part of infection can be seen outside, but the 80 to 90% of infection is inside the foot. And it can spread rapidly along the tendons up to the knee joint also, and patient might end up with above knee amputation also. So in case of grossly infected foot, first of all, patient needs hospitalization, injectable antibiotic, and ruthless aggressive incision and drainage of the infected segment. The first and foremost thing is to control the septicemia in such cases. And second, then we can further investigate the vascular part. So the patient usually presents to me with these kind of toe gangrene, blackening of the toes, or grossly infected foots. So you can see the limb ischemia, the amputation rate at 3 years is 10 times higher than non-diabetic patients. and diagnostic evaluation can be done by the clinical examination. That is the best part: foot pulse examination, the color Doppler, and TCPO2. If there is some arteriopathy or some obstruction in the Doppler investigation, then one can definitely proceed with a CT angiogram or digital subtraction angiography, which is done in cath lab. So this is a color Doppler image of a diffusely diseased vessel. You can see this is a normal vessel on the Doppler, and this is completely blocked vessel. There is no flow at all in the arterial system. Later on, the patient can be subjected to CT angiogram, especially for higher lesions. CT angiography is a good tool to evaluate the arterial system up to knee joint. But unfortunately, diabetic patients have microvessel involvement more compared to major vessels. So the 70% patient will have below knee vessel involvement, in which angiogram cannot pick up the disease because of the artifacts. There is a high possibility of artifacts due to severely calcified vessels in diabetic patient, and especially diabetics with chronic kidney disease. So in such cases, the digital subtraction angiography, similar to coronary angiogram, we can take a puncture in the femoral artery and take a live angiogram of the limb, and in which we can exactly ascertain the level of obstruction in below knee vessels, as well as the length of the lesion can be ascertained. As I said, the vascular involvement in diabetic patient is more in the distal part compared to aortofemoral segment, and so such kind of patient will require femoropopliteal interventions in terms of bypass or angioplasty. So as per the ADA guidelines, if a patient with diabetic foot ulcer presents to you, first of all, one should start with offloading, wound debridement and removal of the infected tissue, regular wound dressings with the dedicated either normal saline, avoid using betadine, and there are various dressings available. Dr. Shailesh can elaborate in his talk regarding the various dressings available and their results. Definitely antibiotics, and after that, after these 4 interventions, one should evaluate the patient after 4 weeks. If the reduction in the ulcer area is not more than 50%, one should definitely consider that something is going wrong in this case. Either the first 4 treatment is not sufficient, or we are missing out something. So the vascular assessment must be done again, and a vascular surgeon's opinion must be taken to prevent further spread of infection and for limb salvage. So the indication of arterial reconstruction in diabetic foot patient is mainly limb salvage and wound healing rather than claudication. For claudication, the medical management is sufficient because we should not intervene unnecessarily. But definitely, if a patient has limb ischemia, wound is there, to save that limb, reconstruction must be done. The goal should be to establish maximum foot perfusion. This angiosome concept, the foot is divided into 6 angiosomes, and out of which it depends on which area the ulcer or gangrene is there. So that artery should be possibly approached first, and to establish the maximum perfusion and give the best healing results. So now there are 2 options: angioplasty and bypass surgery. For short segments, 10 to 15 centimeter blockages, the angioplasty is a preferred option, as these patients have multiple comorbidities, and along with peripheral arterial bed involvement, there is involvement of coronary vessels, carotid vessels, and renal vessels as well. So as far as possible, we avoid doing surgical intervention for short lesions. Definitely for longer lesions, more than 15 centimeter long, or flush occlusion where the major vessels are occluded from their origin, in such cases, definitely surgical option is the surgical intervention is the only bailout option. Before we start with the intervention part, there are certain myths about the vascular reconstruction in diabetic foot population, as well as in the some of the consultants also. People believe that the vascular reconstruction is technically not feasible to perform. It's absolutely wrong. We do it and on regular basis, and definitely I'll show you some of my cases and their results. So it is definitely possible to intervene in diabetic foot patients. Success rate, another myth is success rate is unacceptably low. We have 80% limb salvage rate. We have a data of last 5 years where we have done vascular reconstruction at Wins Hospital, Baroda, and we have 80% limb salvage rate with angioplasty and bypass surgery. Again, morbidity and mortality are not high. Definitely, there is a little bit higher with surgical intervention, but it is acceptably low. The major mortality is because of the cardiac, if the patient has underlying cardiac condition which is not treated or corrected or which is missed, so there's a possibility of morbidity. Otherwise, usually we as a team we involve the physicians, and proper investigation is done. Definitely, it's a cost-effective procedure. I mean, if you compare the limb salvage versus the cost-benefit ratio is definitely there. Dr. Inderjit, can you switch off your mic, please? Yeah. And good quality prosthesis is never a better option than patient's own limb, right? No one would prefer using an artificial limb if the limb is salvageable. So definitely these are the myths about the arterial reconstruction, and we should work on the awareness. Definitely Dr. Chautala is doing a good work, and I would like to contribute to that part and increase the awareness about the diabetic foot care and the possible ways of limb salvage. So first of all, aortobifemoral bypass can be done. You can see a flush aortic occlusion just below the renal arteries, and there's a reformation of the iliac vessels. In such cases, aorta is opened up in the retroperitoneum, a major laparotomy is done, and a bifurcated graft is placed, a Y-shaped graft is placed in the aorta to the bilateral femoral arteries. But these kind of aortobifemoral bypass are rarely required in diabetic foot population. Mainly 3 type of bypasses are required. One is femoropopliteal bypass, that is from the femoral artery to popliteal artery. Femorotibial bypass to the tibial arteries below knee joint, and pedal bypass at the ankle joint, where the only suitable segment is around ankle joint. In such cases, pedal bypasses can be done. We usually prefer using saphenous vein as far as possible. If the vein is not suitable, then synthetic graft can be used. So this is a femorotibial bypass. The patient I operated 6 months ago. The graft was the ipsilateral great saphenous vein, and this segment was entirely occluded from the mid SFA to the upper leg vessel was occluded, and I had to do bypass from superficial femoral artery to posterior tibial artery for the foot gangrene. This is another case of femorotibial bypass. You can see the reconstruction of the vessels. This is a tibioperoneal trunk, posterior tibial artery, and anterior tibial artery. And the bypass was done between the femoral artery and tibial vessels. Sometimes for small lesion, endarterectomy can be done. Some lesions cannot be crossed by wire and balloon. So in such cases, we can open up the vessel, remove the plaque inside the vessel, and re-establish the vascular flow. You can see here, artery is opened up, the plaque is removed, and it is repaired by a patch. So the lumen of the vessel is again re-established as normal as previously, and the wound can get healed. again a short bypass for the mid SFA occlusion. These are the plantar pedal bypasses I was telling you. This is a difficult surgery because the vessels around the ankle joint are very small. These kind of intervention are done at very few places across India. This is most commonly done in southern part of India and few centers in the western India. Otherwise, I did my training from Sir Gangaram Hospital, Delhi. We were doing very few interventions here when I was in Sir Gangaram Hospital. Definitely, we were doing endovascular interventions for below knee vessel, but sometimes I feel that after coming back to Baroda and treating patient, my senior colleague Dr. Vijay Thakur, who has been doing these kind of cases regularly. So definitely the results are better with these kind of bypasses. And now I am regularly doing these kind of bypasses with excellent results. So this is a data of our last 5 years experience. And we have a 80% limb salvage rate at 1 year with surgical interventions in diabetic foot patients. Now, as we all know, what is angioplasty? A wire is crossed across the lesion, balloon is inflated. If there is a recoil of the lesion, one might have to stent that segment to keep the artery patent also. So either balloon angioplasty or stent angioplasty is done as per appropriate morphology. I would like to show you a few cases. The patient, 69-year male patient who was diabetic, having ischemic heart disease, having severe rest pain with toe gangrene, and there was a bilateral common iliac occlusion, and it could be successfully treated just within 1 hour of intervention. We did a aortoiliac stenting and patient could be discharged next day morning. These are the post-operative results. One more case of femoral angioplasty, especially for short lesions. As I mentioned, only balloon angioplasty is sufficient in such cases, and you can see the before and after images, the image after the intervention. Another case of femoral angioplasty. Having a patient having diabetic foot ulcer on heel. Actually, this patient had a cone on his heel, and some of the practitioner tried to remove that cone. Later on, patient developed a necrotic wound, a bad wound at the heel, and as we all know, heel is the most important part of the foot for walking. If the heel is lost, there's very minimal, there's a fat pad in the heel, and directly calcaneum bone is exposed. So if patient doesn't come on time, he might end up with amputation of the leg below knee or above knee, because the infection spreads so fast along with the tendo Achilles, and it can directly spread up to the knee joint also. So I did a thorough debridement of that wound. Also evaluated, there were no pulses in the foot. The anterior tibial and posterior tibial, both vessels were not palpable. We did a ultrasound by ourselves. We do it regularly at our setup. And on color Doppler, there was a obstruction of the superficial femoral artery. Patient was taken up in cath lab. The lesion was crossed with a wire, and we stented this segment. And I can show you the result after 6 weeks of 6 weeks of regular dressing along with offloading. So as Dr. Suri mentioned, it's a joint effort by a physician, a surgeon or plastic surgeon, a vascular surgeon, and definitely a podiatrist, without whose effort the wound could not heal. Because the offloading, you can see the part, this is the most one of the most important weight-bearing segment of the entire body, and without proper offloading care, this wound could not be healed. This was clicked 1 week ago. I did this surgery during lockdown, and this is the image taken 1 week ago. This wound will hopefully heal within next 2 weeks. another case of tibial angioplasty. There was a occlusion of the anterior tibial artery in the mid segment, and posterior tibial artery was occluded from the origin, and the patient presented with wet gangrene of the toes and dorsum of the foot. You can see the initial angiogram. I already mentioned that CT angiogram is not a good tool to evaluate below knee vessels. So we took up the patient for angiogram. What we do is we explain the patient that we'll examine, we'll do an angiogram, we will evaluate, and if the lesion is treatable, we'll do the angioplasty in the same sitting. So these kind of counseling we do usually, and this is the pre-operative image. You can see the balloon dilatation was done, and this is the final run. You can see a good runoff in the vessel, and this is the result after 2 months of debridement. We removed the second toe, it was gangrenous. You can see the grossly infected foot. I mean, I don't know how the patients are waiting to such an advanced stage. I really wonder. I mean, all of you must be seeing these kind of patients, but why we don't intervene early and prevent this stage? Fortunately, this limb, I was also not sure whether I'll be able to salvage his foot or not. But fortunately, after the hard work of 2.5 months, we could heal the wound completely. So I would like to conclude my talk with a treatment protocol for the practitioners out here. Foot at risk, no intervention required. You should educate the patient, as Dr. Trivedi sir said. Proper footwear should be given, and proper examination should be done. For a superficial ulcer in weight-bearing area, offloading is sufficient. Proper wound care should be done. Deep and infected ulcer, definitely thorough and aggressive debridement should be done, and antibiotics should be given as per the culture sensitivity. For osteomyelitis, infected bony component should be removed. And if the things are not going well, or patient directly presents with a gangrene of the toe, one must consider arterial reconstruction for limb salvage, because for extensive gangrene, amputation is the only option. And you can see the life after amputation. There's a high risk of second leg amputation within next 3 years. So at the end of my talk, I would like to ask a question to all of you. Is it worthwhile to do a vascular reconstruction in diabetic foot? And the answer lies in this photograph. Yes, definitely it is necessary, and one must intervene on time. Thank you so much for your kind patience, and we can, if you have any query, we can, I can answer, or we can go ahead with next session.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nanavati, for a nice presentation. We'll take the questions at the last, and we have multiple questions. So now the last presentation for today is none other than Dr. Shailesh Chotala, who is the president of Gujarat chapter of Indian Podiatry Association, and a very hardworking and a dynamic podiatrist working in that part of the country. And I think his hard work will repay him, as he shows in a strong teamwork. That's what I'm saying, that diabetic foot care is something where we have to work in a teamwork, then the results are absolutely proper. And Dr. Chotala is working in Chotala Seona Hospital in Surat, Jeevan Jyoti Hospital, and multiple other hospitals he is working there. And he's a chief consultant podiatrist. So I welcome Dr. Chotala for sharing his slides and start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Without wasting time, I would like to share a few points, because already seniors Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir, Dr. Ashutosh sir also taken, and rather than that points, vascular point of view also Dr. Nanavati sir also taken some good notes. So most probably I'm looking for a good work in the biomechanics side. So the surgical procedure is also good. And sometimes we feel that if we do aggressively debride, some tissue, some fatty fat pads also lost, and patient suffering after the healing phase. Patient is suffering more in daily activities. So as Dr. Ashutosh sir also covered in this talk, like he is doing surgical offloading, and after that also some good biomechanics and some orthotics need is necessary. So without wasting time, I would like to share I mean, the podiatry work, what podiatrists can do. So in that, the foot ulcer, diabetic foot ulcer is categorized in two category in my point of view. That in category one, ulceration is there, and any non-healing foot wounds is there, foot infection which has required the antibiotic treatment also, and some ingrowing toenails with inflammation or infection, painful corns, painful large area of the calluses, and we have some cases like dry or soft, dry gangrene, wet gangrene also is there. Some wounds in the forefoot area, in between the toes. Also, it's a part of the diabetic foot ulcer. In category 2 also, some neuropathic changes, some PAD, peripheral arterial disease related foot problems is also coming. Rheumatoid arthritis related foot deformities also treated by the podiatrist, and some diabetes with the moderate or high risk of foot risk classification is also there. Foot ulcers with the diabetic foot ulcer refer to straight diabetic foot clinic. So today I want to highlight one referral, the techniques for every physicians, for other GP practitioners, or we can, have patients from the plastic surgeons and some vascular surgeons too, who are working in the diabetic foot. So some orthopedic foot problems is also there related to podiatry work, and I'm not going into deep, but some more common problems are flat feet, pronated feet, some heel pain, some sports injuries of the foot, and some patients is coming with the any biomechanics related to knee and spine also. So all we can treat in the team. So it's a teamwork, as we already discussed lots of time in the webinar. It's a team effort, and for the team, we can have the team like orthopedicians, general surgeons, plastic surgeons, trauma centers also, vascular and endovascular surgeons, neurosurgeons as well, pediatricians also, some gynecologists also, sports related issues also there, and podiatrists can do that solution of these sports person problems. Some endocrinologists or diabetologists also have podiatry services, rheumatologists, physiotherapists, PNO, obesity, and none other than the that X-ray and all the radiologists also service we can have the in the center. So this is the some CPR protocol for I think it is from the Dr. David Armstrong from USA. If you look at the CPR protocol, so first of all, they check the feet, as Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir mentioned already in the examination part. Every foot practitioner, diabetic foot practitioner, have some skill to check immediately once patient is come to the clinic or center. So check for certain criteria for all the association have, and after that the second point is protect the feet while the any pressure area is there, any neuropathy or any vascular problems finding is there. So we must have to protect the thing once we once we come to know that this is the scenario for the patient, and if it is not in control, then we can refer to the eye center or any particular specialist like vascular surgeon, plastic surgeon, or podiatrist. So we can, as Dr. Nanavati sir said in the last case, we must concentrate on the early stages of the diabetic foot rather than in the advanced stages. We have seen lots of cases just because of lack of knowledge and lack of awareness from medical point of view, or some patients ignorance. We have experienced lots of cases coming into advanced stages. So at that stage we know that we can try, but we cannot assure the patient that we can salvage your feet. So if we spread the awareness in terms of Indian Podiatry Association or in terms of any local association associate with the doctors, that I prevent amputation, that motto or goal will be achieved soon. So I conclude the last slide that 4 out of 5 diabetic foot ulcers can be healed and can be prevented from amputation. So this is the main part of the diabetic foot surgeon, podiatric surgeon, vascular surgeon, even good endocrinologist, diabetologist, and plastic surgeon as well. So this way we can have a common goal, like I prevent amputation, and Gujarat chapter of IPA is one of the that association that anyone can join, any surgeon or anyone can join to the association, and we can have a common goal like I prevent amputation. Thank you very much, and I thankful all the participants who participate today, and now I'm hand over to the Dr. Suri sir.
Thank you, Shailesh, for a nice presentation and overview. This is absolutely right that role of a podiatrist is very important, as we have been saying during this webinar. And coming down to the question answer, we have some questions. So I'll try to concise few of the questions which are similar to each other, and then we can ask. The first question to Dr. Trivedi sir, and I'll be asking few questions to Dr. Trivedi. Then we have 6 or 7 other questions, and then coming down to dressings, as sir has requested. So I'll be covering a small session on. Let me see if I can join in with my slides, or otherwise I can just over the top I can cover some latest dressings and all. Sir, a question this is from Dr. Manish from Agra. How frequently a high-risk patient should go to a podiatrist or to a physician? This is very correct, as you have shown in one of your slides, that we need to categorize patients into low risk, moderate risk, and a high risk patients. Low risk could be the patient who have neuropathy and peripheral vascular disease, or any one of them without any ulcer. Moderate risk could be grade 1 or grade 2 type of ulcers after healed also, because a lot of patients, they go to the diabetologist after going to the surgeon, and after the healing has occurred or after grafting, they have to go back to a podiatrist or to the diabetologist. And grade 4 could be a high risk patients. So how frequently we can say or give education to the patient that how frequently they need to see the podiatrist? Sir, can you unmute, sir? Unmute yourself.
Unmute, sir. Silas, sir, please unmute. Your voice is not coming. Actually, sir is trying to speak.
Sir, you are not unmute, please. No, sir. No, sir. Sir, at the left hand, yes, sir. Left hand corner. Down below, sir. Left hand corner of the screen. Not audible, sir. Not audible. No. Sir, at the lower border of the screen, on the left side, please move your mouse. Yes.
Okay.
Now,
yes,
okay.
sir.
Now?
Yes, yes.
Now,
Okay, okay. Answer to Dr. Manish is, it is not the frequency which is important, but at the same time, carry your messages in simple term is educate the patient in such a way. We usually call the patients every 3 months for HbA1c. If his diabetes is under control, we call it every 4 months. Now a patient who is having high risk, let us say he has a associated comorbid conditions, or he has associated foot anomalies. We educate the patient in such a way, we educate that in case you take your foot care completely so well that you don't come to us. But frequency of the visit depends. If his diabetes is not under control, he can come every 2 months or every 3 months, number one. Number two, if it is under control. But in case if he develops any complications regarding small ulcers, small abrasions, there are no specific guidelines that you have to come every 2 months or 3 months. Even he can come within a week in case if he develops any complications like small ulcer or that. But usually we call it every 3 months. In a high risk, a patient who is a farm worker, who is a laborer, who is exposed to a lot of physical work with not proper footwear care, then probably 2 months will be a fairly good time, provided with due instructions given to him that his foot care is of paramount importance and that role is to be played by himself rather than a doctor. So this is a short summary for Dr. Mani.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Very nicely answered questions. It is not the frequency at which we have to call. It is according to the severity of the patient. That is very important. Sir, second question again to you. This is by Dr. Isha from Aligarh. She is asking, do fungal nail infections need medical treatment or in diabetic foot care, or debridement should be the only debridement should be done to them? Fungal nail infections. We know that a lot of diabetic foot infections are occurred at the anterior part of the toes or on the plantar surface of the toes. So a lot of patients have onychomycosis and dry skin. So your comments on that?
If I am a treating diabetologist, I would request a surgeon to have a good debridement, but at the same time, however good that surgeon may be, even a small fungus may be left out. So it is better to cover with antifungal agents and good offloading of the wound. That is what I would think.
Yes, it's a correct answer, sir, because usually we don't medically treat the onychomycosis. We don't need to give oral or IV antibiotic other than if the patient has got cellulitis, and then we have sent some fungal culture and other things are done. But usually if onychomycosis is there, or sometimes the patient has interdigital infections here, so we don't need to treat medically, but topically we need to correct. We can give them topical antifungal agents which are available, because we all know that aging patients are there. Any patient who is above 60, so we should not give oral antifungals looking at the hepatitis and other liver conditions. That's it. So there's always a myth that a patient has come to the hospital with a diabetic foot infection. So first we should correct sugar, or we need to do the debridement. So there's always a myth and always a vice versa reaction between a podiatrist and a diabetologist, or between the junior doctors. Even sometimes the residents call us and say, sir, tomorrow you are doing a surgery, his sugars are 300 or 250 or more. So your comments on that? This is a very good question which has been asked by a doctor.
Sir, golden rule for diabetes with management is only one. Please control your diabetes as fast as possible, as quickly as possible to euglycemic status, and that can be achieved by starting insulin therapy, whether patient likes or not. But if you give that patient insulin, short acting, either you can give complete basal bolus, or you can start with bolus in the initial part, but then bolus again will only cover the 12 hours period. What about the daytime? So it is a basal bolus will be the ideal choice. You can give short acting before meals and long acting, that is basal therapy at the night time. That would take care of a diabetes for almost 18 to 20 hours, and that will be done within 2 to maximum 5 days. So within 5 days we can achieve euglycemic status as quickly as possible, and then by the time we have a competent surgeon like you who will take care of the wound. And I am sure that we are not going to put, again remember that insulin is not forever. The dictum is very clear that if patient's serum creatinine is not high, even right now the therapy is, if GFR is not less than 30, you can give SGLT2 inhibitors in a subsequent stage. But right now, if insulin requirement is less than 18 units per day, you can switch over back to the oral therapy what he was on. But whenever there is acute infection, avoid metformin. That is number one. That is a paramount importance. Number two, SGLT2 inhibitors, they do not play role. Anything on the contrary, it may aggravate in presence of infection chances of developing euglycemic ketoacidosis. So best thing is to give him insulin, cover the entire day with the euglycemic status, and by the time a competent surgeon is going to take care, and he will have better healing, proper healing, and complete healing.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Very, very nice question. And there's another subsequent question which has been asked by one of the IPA members from Bihar. Sir, when to start insulin in diabetic foot ulcer patients? So I think already you have answered that. There's another part of this question. What medicines are to be avoided if patient has got CKD with diabetic foot ulcer? What medicines should be avoided? I think oral hypoglycemic. Asking, yes. OHS.
See, we must remember the pharmacokinetics of the anti-diabetic drugs. The drugs to be used or drugs to be avoided is most important is sulfonylurea, because if you creatinine with 1.8 more, say 1.2, it is fine, but beyond 1.8, as per the UK guideline, also we avoid metformin. Sulfonylurea, if you use, the chances of development of hypoglycemia is almost 4 times. Number 2, pioglitazone, half time is almost 8 to 12 hours. Half time, half life will be, now it will be, pharmacologic action will be more pronounced, and again chances of development of hypoglycemia will be there. Only safe is linagliptin. Linagliptin is a safe drug which is a DPP-4 inhibitor. You can use DPP-4 inhibitor, particularly linagliptin. It is safe. Otherwise, whether Vilda, whether it is sitagliptin or any other anti-diabetic drugs, they are not safe. Lina is safe with this, and another is teneligliptin. So linagliptin is teneligliptin. Teneligliptin, I was one of the primary investigator for the India under the title called Treat India Study, along with Sujoy Ghosh in India, and where we found that it was fairly good for diabetic patient with CKD also. It did not deteriorate any renal function. So you can use linagliptin, but it is costly, so you can use teneligliptin. Otherwise, insulin is the drug of choice, but again use insulin with caution and proper precautions. Yes. Rest, GLP-1 RA is out of question. Rest, sulfonylurea, as I mentioned, pioglitazone, metformin, and any other. AGI, yes, AGI is an inert material. Alpha glucosidase inhibitors, they are inert material. It's an inert drug. You can use it, but it is a very 0.4 to 0.6 HbA1c reduction after 3 months. So it is better to switch over to insulin. But whatever his drugs on with CKD, please switch over. Another safe drug is in CKD, glimepiride is one of the safe drugs. Glipizide is one of the safe drugs. So you can use it with caution, with remembrance, with proper instructions to the patients.
Thank you, sir. Very nicely answered questions. I hope he has a good take-home message for that. Dr. Ashutosh is there? Dr. Chotala?
No, sir. Dr. Ashutosh is not there. No.
Acha, he has a question. Does patient needs diabetic shoes after doing surgical offloading? So I think I can answer it. Yes, for a short period of time, patient needs offloading. Either we have to give them a TCC cast or we have to give them a surgical sandals by the time the patient heals. Because wherever the surgical offloading has been done, we know that plantar pressure, we have to remove the plantar pressure at those areas of surgery. Either it is under the first MTP joint or the fifth MTP joint or the instep area. So whatever areas are there, for few period of time, surgical sandals have to be given, a particular diabetic shoes. But the main goal of surgical offloading was that he can get back to his own offloading footwear, and recurrence of that ulcers are not there. There's another question. What are your comments on cost factors involved with surgical offloading? A very good question which is asked. And compliance of the patient. So this is very important because whenever we are doing any surgery and diabetic foot care, we have to tell the cost factor of the patient. Whether if it's a neuroischemic ulcer, we have to discuss with the vascular surgeon. We have to think of or tell the patient about the cost involved in angiography and intravenous or endovascular or graft surgeries. This is important. But before doing a surgical offloading, cost is a matter to the patient. Subsequent, you can see suppose a neuropathic ulcer is there under the first MTP joint or interphalangeal joint. So minor debridement and offloading can take care of that. But if we are doing surgical offloading, we have to tell the cost to the physician, because patient has to go either to the treatment room or in a minor OT. Those surgeries can be done. But insurance is also very important. A lot of our patients, they don't have insurance. So these are the factors to this. A few questions to Dr. Nanavati. In CKD patients with creatinine of 2.0, what best we can do for angiography to these patients with CKD of say 2.2, or if the patient has got
very
higher
good
routine.
option. Very good question. So the almost 50% of patients have some kind of kidney component, whether they are on dialysis or whether they are not. I mean, creatinine of 2, this patient will not be on dialysis definitely.
Yeah.
So for limb salvage, angiography and angioplasty is mandatory in such patients. So we have to minimize the dose of contrast material used. And for that, there is an option of carbon dioxide angiography that we can do. In carbon dioxide angiography, we can see up to the vessels up to the knee level. For below knee vessels, carbon dioxide angiography is not a good option because we cannot visualize the below knee vessel occlusion. So what we do is we try to see up to knee joint with carbon dioxide angiography. So no contrast is used in that segment. And for below knee vessel, we take minimum contrast, that too in dilution. So we take 50% of contrast and 50% of normal saline. And then we try to use as low as possible. So hardly in 5 to 10 ml of contrast, we can perform the angiography. Then if angioplasty is performed, then we have to explain the risk of minor, depending upon the creatinine. If 1.2 to 2, if the creatinine is between 1.2 to 2, then the risk is approximately 10% of contrast-induced nephropathy. If creatinine is more than 2, then the risk ranges from 10% to 60% of contrast.
Yes.
Induced nephropathy. If the patient is willing to take that risk, we should intervene. But ideally, we explain patient, and there are very few cases. I have not come so far. I have not come across with any dialysis dependence with below knee vessel interventions.
Okay. There's another question. What is angiosome theory to diabetic foot ulcer? I know angiosome is a big chapter. We can talk
it's a complicated bit.
Short answer could be yes.
Complicated, but so angiosome is like a you can divide the foot into 6 angiosomes, right? So the 2 segments are taken care by anterior tibial artery, the 2 segments are taken care by posterior tibial artery, and 2 segments are taken care by peroneal artery. So it is the anatomical distribution of the blood vessels, and they have been given a responsibility to take care of certain part of the foot. So if grade 2 gangrene is there, we should first consider revascularizing anterior tibial artery if possible, and so that we can get the best result. If ATA is not possible to revascularize, completely occluded, then the next best vessel is posterior tibial artery to heal that wound. So it's a angiosome concept and a detailed chapter. I can share the link if someone wants to read about it. But it's more on a part rather than the.
Yes, very nicely answered. Angiosome theory is there, and we can open up only that vessel which is taking the blood circulation to that part of the wound which is necrosed at that period of time. We have Dr. Sandeep Suri. He is the we welcome you, Dr. Sandeep. He is the president of Haryana chapter of Indian Podiatry Association and very senior diabetologist working in Hisar in Haryana. He has a question that what is the use of silastazole, high dose statins, and rivaroxaban in peripheral arterial disease? Role of silastazole, high dose statins, and rivaroxaban.
Yes. So silastazole and statins have definite role along with antiplatelet agents, because most of these patients have microangiopathy. Definitely they have microangiopathy, and those who have macroangiopathy, is a possibility of involvement of other vascular beds also, like coronary system and carotid vessels. So antiplatelet is mainly used for the coronary and carotid risk preventions to prevent major adverse cardiovascular events. This statin here, rather than lipid lowering, it has a pleomorphic effect. The pleiotropic effect, I would say. Pleiotropic effects are, you can search on internet what is pleiotropic. So pleiotropic effects are something which statins do apart from their lipid lowering action. They increase the microvascular circulation, they increase the RBC motilities, they have anti-inflammatory role, and they do some free radical scavenging activities. So definitely statin has a proven role in diabetic foot patients, especially with peripheral arterial disease. Silastazole definitely improves the RBC motility and is the only agent recommended by our vascular guidelines. It definitely is by improving the RBC motility and its antiplatelet effects. So silastazole is definitely recommended. Rivaroxaban and other newer anticoagulant agents are not recommended in routine cases because they don't give any additional benefit. If the lesion is non-reconstructable, such as more in smokers, you can see diabetic patients along with smoking, the vessels, there is no landing zone to revascularize. The vessels are completely occluded. We cannot do anything. In such cases, there's a COMPASS trial which has recently come, in which they recommend 2.5 rivaroxaban twice a day, and it has, I mean, the results are coming right now. I mean, they have some short data, interim data, but the results are not out definitely. But one can use 2.5 milligram rivaroxaban for 6 months in non-reconstructible cases. Otherwise, there is no routine role of rivaroxaban.
We have to see the cost also. The cost of
yes, definitely it's a costly.
Costly drug, and Silastazole is very good because it works as a distal vasodilator. So it is even our podiatry wound care associations also recommend this product, and lot of evidence is based on this medicine like Silastazole.
One more thing, sir, I would like to add, pentoxifylline also has a role. It's not Trental, which was available previously, but these days they stopped the production. There's one more drug available in market with the brand name of Perital, and it's the pentoxifylline. And one can use pentoxifylline also along with silastazole. It has similar action, and it can help in the wound healing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Nanavati, for nice answers. We have Dr. Dhoot, Paramjit Singh Dhoot from Canada. He's a very efficient and very staunch follower of our webinars. I think more than 15 webinars he have attended. He has a question that how we can prevent amputation in diabetic foot ulcer. Sir, your question is valid and it's a big topic, and that's why this IPA webinars have been conducted and series of webinars we are doing for this. Main goal of preventing amputation, the first answer I will say, I'll take this answer. The first point I will say is a teamwork. No independent doctor is, I'll not say that efficient enough to control amputation, but it has to be a teamwork. You need to have a good diabetologist control, good sugar control, to have the proper glycemic control on the wound, proper surgical debridement of the wound, taking cultures and prompt treatment according to the antibiotics, according to the culture should be done. Proper offloading has to be given to these patients. And other important is we have to think of revascularization. If the perfusion to the wound is not proper, we need to do ABI index, we need to do Doppler test. There was another question of calcification of the vessels, which I wanted to ask Dr. Nanavati, but because of the time, that we have to see long-term diabetics who are chronic renal patients also, they have calcification. So when we are doing ABI index, they are falsely elevated. You know that ankle systolic pressure increases falsely. So there's another pressure, technique of doing toe pressures. We can do the toe pressure and find out. So all these modalities, we can work together: revascularization, offloading, surgical debridement, and sugar control. These all can be worked together in a hospital or in a clinic setup where you are working in a diabetic wound. there you can really prevent these amputations. And lot of data is available. Dr. Armstrong's, Dr. Figiasis, and Dr. Freiberg's from US, and from UK, Dr. Edmonds from UK. This is very important. So coming down to Dr. Trivedi's question on latest dressings, I will see that the foremost and the one of the very important, I'll cover few important dressings over there. One is hydrogel. Hydrogels are very cost-effective gels which are available mainly from the Indian companies. They are coming out available like Silverex Heal, or we have Mega Heal, we have Hydro Heals. They are cost-effective, something like 100 to 200 rupees in a gel. This is very important. If you see a diabetic foot ulcer or non-infective ulcer, it's very important to use hydrogel on them with proper offloading. They maintain the moist environment on the wound, and slowly you can see the wound gets epithelialized. Second, very important are calcium alginate dressing, which are something like Caltostat. We have Calcisoft dressings from MIL company. These are calcium alginate dressings, can be applied on an exudative wound. When there's a discharge coming, or a patient comes to you with a blister and there's some fluid coming out from the wound, you can use calcium alginate, put little bit of normal saline over it, and you can apply that on the wound. They are very effective and absorbing the discharge from its own body. Again, another dressing is hydrofibers. Hydrofibers are Aquacel AG by Convatec, and there's another company, Coloplast. They have very good hydrofibers. Hydrofibers are entangled fibers. They are hydrofibers. They again has a capacity to take away the discharge from the wound, and they help in granulation tissue formation. You can leave these dressings for 2 to 3 days of time on the wound, and you slowly see that granulation tissue develops over there. There's another dressing called Amcoplast. This is by Dr. Reddy's. It has been launched in our country, and this is amnion chorion allograft. Initially, we used to go to the gynae department and see the placenta, which is being shed away. So that it's the inner lining of the placenta, which has very strong keratinocytes. And this dressing is to be applied where you have to bypass the plastic surgeon or plastic surgery to the wound, where you don't need to do grafting, like 1 inch or 2 inch of wound is there. Amcoplast is very important. This is there. Then new dressings are called Integra and Dermacell, which are dermal matrix. They are available in our country. Initially, we used to get it from USA, but now they are available, and they help in the developing the dermal matrix on the wound. And after that, we can very early graft these wounds. And then we have collagen dressings. We know India is a very good country for collagens, and we have a lot of collagen dressings available. And this is again for epithelialization of the wound. And last and the least is honey dressings. A lot of time we can use honey, raw honey, not the Dabur honey and all. You can take calcium alginate sheet. You can put raw honey. You can tell your resident doctors or nursing staff to put honey and put it on the bed sores. Very good dressing for bed sores, or dressing for diabetic foot ulcer, where a lot of exudate, lot of smell is there, lot of this white and necrotic tissues are there. You can do honey dressings every alternate day for say 7 to 8 days of time, and good granulation tissue develops. Another is the foam dressings, where you have got lot of discharge coming. You can also use foam dressings. So I will send you on your emails a list of the dressings and where you can use them. Anybody who's interested, you can send your emails to me, and then you can this. So with this, we will come to the end of this webinar. Dr. Shailesh,
yes, sir.
Please. Thank you, Dr. Trivedi sir. Very nice to see you during this virtual meeting. Thanks to Dr. Ashutosh and all the speaker, Dr. Nanavati and Dr. Ravi Kamipli from USA. He is connected from there, but he is in the middle of his hospital over there. We have Dr. Mehboob Alam and Dr. Rana from Bangladesh. They are IPA members and they are doing webinars over there. Very good surgeons, and they have done multiple workshops of IPA in Delhi. And Dr. Rana has also done the fellowship program over there. And Dr. Paramjit, thanks to you for connecting from Canada. He's a stem cell and PRP specialist working over there. He works in India and in Canada. And he has a question for Dr. Nanavati, you also, on the role of PRP. And it's a huge topic. So tomorrow we are doing again, tomorrow I'm doing a webinar. So Dr. Dhud, you can connect over there, and I'm taking this topic of PRP and stem cells tomorrow I'm doing. So we can that. Thank you so much, Dr. Chotala, to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, seniors, especially Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir and Dr. Kushan Nanavati sir and Dr. Ashutosh Shah sir. Because in busy schedule, as we all know, Dr. Shailesh Trivedi sir also doing lots of webinar. And once I talked to him last week, he said he has a series of webinars, but for you, I will be happy to, and for Dr. Suri sir, he will be happy. So that's why he
Thank you,
give
sir.
us a
Thank you.
time. And Dr. Kushan sir also, we had a communication last week also, and he is very keen to do this webinar, and in future also, sir, we will do as a awareness program through IPA Gujarat chapter. So thanks again all of you to join us today, and over to you, sir Shailesh Trivedi sir, for a few words.
Under the able leadership of Dr. Suri Sahib, Dr. Shailesh Chotala, he deserves all the compliments to initiate and to start this chapter at the Gujarat level. And I'm sure he would have no bar, he would have no boundaries. The success is lying in front of him. It is just few meters away. And all colleagues in Surat, Vadodara or Gujarat, all of us are proud of you that some initiative has been taken by a young man who has a long career, to follow. And I must appreciate Dr. Suri sir that he is always motivational. His talks are always encouraging, and he has been a real. I want to say he has been a real teacher. In addition to his private practice, that is a matter apart. But he has been a real teacher, and everything I would call it is he is a walking and talking encyclopedia. And all lectures
Very
given
true,
by
sir.
every participants,
Thank you.
they are all they did a wonderful job. And congratulations to Dr. Kushan, Dr. Nanavati, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Asutosh Bhai, and everybody. And Shailesh Bhai, once again, I wish you all the best.
Thank you
God
very
bless
much, sir.
all of us, and God bless you particularly because you have a very, very long career. Okay?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Suri sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So
Thank
we
you
are,
so much, sir.
we are,
And thank
yeah.
you, Dr. Alam, Dr. Anna, Dr. Joseph, Dr. Sandeep Suri, sir, Dr. Nanavati, and Ravi. If you are there, you can stop hosting over there. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ravi, sir.
Ravi.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ravi, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Good night,
Ravi, for
everyone.
hosting. And I
Yeah.
think you are busy in your practice.
I don't have to
Just
stay but 1 hour
in
and a
this
half
clinic
every